What the healthcare is going on? Dueling rulings. Confusion reigns supreme over the president's healthcare law. First, a three-judge panel ruling those government subsidies that have helped many Americans buy insurance under the Affordable Care Act, well, they're not legal. That would mean that up to 4.7 million healthcare enrollees technically aren't legal either. Then, a short time later, a separate appeals court ruling that those subsidies are legal. It is setting the stage for yet another Supreme Court fight. To Steve Moore on what has suddenly become an even bigger mess. Steve, where does this end? What happens?
Well, Neil, you're right that these two decisions were about as clear as mud because these two appellate courts found exactly the opposite conclusions. And what's really interesting about this is that the one appellate court, the one that invalidated a big portion of Obamacare, I want to just read this one segment, what the court said, because I think it's so important, Neil. The court said that the law unambiguously restricts the subsidies to insurance bought on state-run exchanges. And that's really important because what it says, Neil, is that the law does not allow subsidies through the federal insurance market. It has to be done through the states. And the reason for that, people are probably confused and saying, well, why does the law require it to be done through the states? And it's because, remember, President Obama said this is not going to be a federal insurance program. It's going to be run through the states. That's what the law says. And yet the Obama administration is trying to, because as you know, a lot of the state exchanges are going away. It's all becoming one big federal exchange. But the law says you can't provide subsidies that way. It's very clear.
So he would oddly find himself siding with this Virginia court that has effectively said states rule, everyone else drools. So here's what I want to ask you. If indeed the first court we talked about, the three-judge panel that said the subsidies are a no-go, then that would mean the enrollee number that the administration gives us, let's say it's 9 million, half of them are not enrollees. Half of them are not legal enrollees, right?
Well, what it would mean is you cannot provide subsidies to the people in that
and without those
exchange.
Subsidies, those people, by and large, can't afford this.
Exactly. People want. That's the reason for having the subsidies in the first place. Now, I'm going to make another point, if I may, Neil.
Sure.
As you know, a lot of these states are finding their exchanges aren't working, right? We've seen many states that are just abandoning their state programs and putting everybody into the federal system. If that happens, President Obama has a big problem on his hand, right? Because the law, as the court said, it explicitly states that you can't have subsidies except through the states. I don't know how the president is going to thread that needle. It may mean the whole law essentially could be invalidated or it would have to be substantially rewritten.
Or go back to the Supreme Court for clarification. But on this picky point, would the Supreme Court weigh in on it?
You know, I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I do know this. I've read the bill, I've read this court decision, and when they say it's unambiguous, the language in the law, I mean, the law is the law, right? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You have to abide by the law as written. And that's why, as I said before, I think to go forward with the subsidies, the president and Congress would actually have to rewrite the law, and that would open up a huge can of worms. Remember, the purpose of Obamacare in the first place was to get people with insurance, to take people off the uninsured rolls. That may not happen now. If you lose 5 million people, 4 or 5 million people as a result of this decision, you're not going to have many people covered by Obamacare.
To say nothing of signing up others when they know that the subsidies could be in doubt and invalidated.
That's exactly right. So it could be a death knell, but you're right. The Supreme Court, once again, will make the ultimate decision here.
All right, doctor by court, I guess. Steve Moore, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Forget about